mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang magiliw, pero sa sinakalan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyag ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisingil, sa nagatak tutok sa simoy at sa langit ng pagaw, ay hinatang tulad, awit sa pagkayang minamahal, ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na nagtitingin, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pang ay di magtitingin. Luman ang araw ng warhagin pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang hindi kaya na pagkay mga amin, at mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Hello po ating mga kasamahan mula sa SHAPC. And of course, Drew, kung kasama nga ang central office, ang regional offices natin, we have also with us this morning and we are so happy, so honored to have our guest from the UN Habitat. Please, yung mga kasamahan nyo from UN Habitat led by, of course, Sir Christopher Royo and Sir Bernard Bart. Hello, sir. Good morning and welcome to DHSUD. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So at this juncture, magtutuloy-tuloy na po tayo sa ating programa. Let me call on the DHSUD Undersecretary for International Cooperation and Institutional Partnership, LFDB Planning Service, Public Housing and Settlement Service, Undersecretary Yap, to give us a welcome remarks. Yeah.
Yes. Yusek Henry, you may now proceed with your welcome remarks.
Dear colleagues in the Department of Human Settlement and Urban Development and key shelter agencies, fellow workers in government, distinguished international and local guests from our development partners, good morning and happy National Shelter Month. In the brief period of 2 months, I have been personally witness to the enormous challenges that the shelter sector is facing. Our records show that over the last 6 years, our annual housing production and financial assistance averaged around 190,000 units a year. However, it's only addressing 17% of the total housing needs of the country. At this rate, unfortunately, the housing needs will exceed over 6.5 million by the end of this present administration. Thus, we cannot afford to do business as usual. Least we'll find ourselves in a helpless situation. In short, we have to address the bottlenecks, and this can be traced to 2 issues, that of affordability and access to funding. It is for this reason that our President Marcos, and his cabinet, upon the recommendation of our DHSUD Secretary, Jerry Acusar, approved and adopted an innovative and radical approach as part of the priority of this administration, aptly named Pambansang Pabahay para sa mga Pilipino or 4PH program. The DHSUD officers, fully supportive from our department and key shelter family, are very confident that we will be able to attain our goals. This is because we have you, our partners from government, the private sector, multilateral and international development agencies and organizations who all share and are equally committed to fulfill the dream of every Filipino to have decent shelter that they can call their own. Today, we would like to especially recognize our partners from UN Habitat for participating in this kickoff event, but also for jointly celebrating with us World Habitat Day. The UN Habitat continuously creates awareness on the growing inequalities and challenges facing our settlements that are further exacerbated by the three C's crisis, namely COVID-19, climate change, and conflict. Their assistance in numerous Philippine projects, such as development of climate resilience urban plans and design studies, provincial climate risk diagnostics, and in rebuilding Marawi, reinforces our shared commitment towards establishing a safe, resilient, and sustainable community. This year's National Shelter Month theme of Abot Kayang Pabahay tungo sa panatag na buhay focuses on these key messages of providing affordable, decent shelter in livable and sustainable communities. This surely will uplift the lives of our fellow kababayans, the informal settler families, and of course, the lower income wage earner. With this, I'd like to declare the National Shelter Month activities officially opened, and let us rally behind our housing program. Thank you very much.
Imagine a nation where every family has a place of their own. Walang Pilipinong walang bahay sa sariling bayan. A project of the Marcos administration. Pambansang pabahay para sa Pilipino. This project aims to address the current housing situation in the Philippines through the Home for Everyone, Program 1. This program sets its focus on finishing the 6 million units backlog due to unaffordable housing and inaccessible housing funds by constructing 1 million homes every year for 6 years, alongside providing preferential interest rate of 1% to its buyers. The current ceiling of one socialized housing is at 580,000 pesos, which most Filipinos can't afford. With this program, Filipinos will now have the power to choose a house they can call home. Option 1. Socialized housing. Option 2. Upgraded housing. Option 3. Mid-rise and high-rise. How will this project be funded? Funding will not be an issue because the money stays within the banking system. Bank lends money to buyers to buy a house. Buyers pay the developer. Developer pays the contractors. Contractors pay the suppliers for construction materials and labor. Suppliers and laborers deposit their money or spend them. As the Home for Everyone Program 1 prospers, more individuals and families will be qualified to avail of the housing program from Luzon to Visayas to Mindanao. In addition, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s Pambansang Pabahay para sa Pilipino now introduces the Home for Everyone Program 2. This program aims to give solution to the housing problems of the poverty-stricken Filipinos. In 1938, President Manuel L. Quezon purchased 1,529 hectares of land, amounting to 5 centavos per square meter only. Today, with a property price of 100,000 per square meter, Quezon City is now one of the richest cities in the country. 4 strategies to achieve this plan. Utilization of idle land and idle money. Improvement of transportation and infrastructure. Tapping government construction. And implementation of easy payment plan. The program's source of funding will be from the projected market value of the 2,000 hectares reserve area, which is 1 trillion pesos at 50,000 per square meter after 30 years. This project will likewise create 2 new megacities in the south and in the north, replicating the success of Quezon City and will help decongest Metro Manila. With the construction of the North-South Economic Expressway from Quezon to Cabanatuan and the building of a new modern port that will boost trade and commerce for the country. Ease in transportation of goods and services, agricultural development, and economic growth will be its results. With this in mind, the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development envisions to develop and transform these blighted areas and the Philippine landscape into prime, residential, and world-class waterfront developments. The Zero ISF 2028 project will set its focus on the identified areas to be launched for the first 1 million units, which will then be replicated across the Philippines. The Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development plans to develop these blighted areas into mid-rise housing developments that will house thousands of ISFs. This development will be strategically planned to have more open space applicable for outdoor activities and roads for easy access to and from the project. The department also aims to clean and develop these esteros into parks and walkways to help restore its luster and aid the rehabilitation of the waterways. In pursuing the success of this project, the department has laid out the project and financial structure of the proposed Zero ISF 2028 project. The Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development will identify the blighted areas for conversion to mixed-use development. For privately owned properties with informal sector families, the local government or DHSUD will acquire the property through purchase or through expropriation. For government-owned properties occupied with informal sector families, preparation for mixed-use project will proceed. Real estate developers and contractors. DHSUD to identify qualified developers and contractors. Pag-ibig to provide developmental loan to developer or contractor. LGU and DHSUD shall identify ISF beneficiaries. ISF shall have priority in the allocation of units. Public will be allowed to purchase units from the development not allocated to ISF beneficiaries. The buyers start contributing participation equity or down payments for the unit that they have purchased at 80% completion of the building at half the regular amortization to establish paying capacity. Upon completion of the project, financial institutions will take out and provide real estate mortgage loans to buyers. Units will be made affordable due to the interest support provided by DHSUD. LGU will provide additional interest support for 5 years. The takeouts from CDS financing and real estate mortgage will pay off developmental loans provided by Pag-ibig. National Home Mortgage Corporation may purchase the real estate mortgages from banks and offer it to the capital market as mortgage-backed securities. Let us establish more livable and sustainable urban communities. Let us build homes to help build a brighter future for the country. Let us create a pathway out of poverty and create opportunities to fulfill the Filipino dream. Where there is a house for every Filipino family. Walang Pilipinong walang bahay sa sariling bayan.
Magandang umaga sa lahat. To our DHSUD officials and employees here in the central office and regional offices. Our key shelter agencies joining us via Zoom. And to our very special guest, the UN Habitat led by Mr. Bernard Bart and Mr. Christopher Rolo. Good morning. Today has been glorious day not only for the Department of Human Settlement and Urban Development, but for everyone in the housing and the real estate sector as we launch this year's National Shelter Month. So I would like to thank the President for celebration with us. It has truly been a pleasure. Became a part of the DHSUD family is merely 2 months ago, and yet, right off the beat, I have witnessed the issues affecting the country's human settlement. The Philippines is haunted by natural disaster, the struggle during COVID-19 pandemic, and corresponding effects to our livelihood. These are the days when our countrymen are the most need of shelters to protect them from calamities and to serve as citadels and the end of tiring days. But as mentioned, current condition has limited our physical capacities, and so affordability has also become most important consideration of the department in construction home. Mga kasama, nakakadalawang buwan pa na ako, going 3 months. Ang magagawa na natin at nakaporma ng bahay, ilan na? Ang tatayong bahay na mag-inaugurate tayo, 200,000. In 2 months' time, we're thinking about in December, we can have mga another 300. So before end of the year, baka maka 600,000 tayo. Ang pangako natin sa presidente, 1 million houses a year. So yung mga kasama natin dito sa DHSUD, yung mga palakpakan natin yung mga opisyalis natin dito. Sila ang tumutulong sa atin para dumami ang pabahay sa Pilipinas. Gusto ko po pagmalaki nyo ang DHSUD sa isang ahensya na makakasolve ng problema ng pabahay. Kanina po, kamiting ko yung World Bank. Ang dami namin kwentuhan sa World Bank. Tumatakbo sa isip ko, ano kaya matutulong sa akin itong mga ito? At the end of the day, tayo rin din po ang magtutulungan. Walang ibang makakatulong sa atin, kundi sarili natin para sa bayang Pilipinas. Hindi po tayo aasa sa kanila para po tayo ay matulungan at para makagawa ng maraming bahay. Nasa sa atin po ang paraan para magawa natin yung problema sa pabahay. Malaking bagay din po ang nasa labas ng ating organisasyon. Malaking bagay din matutulungan, lalo na po itong habitat. Noong araw po, yung habitat, naalala ko po nung first job ko sa NHA, dun sa kapitbahayan, sa Tondo Foreshore Development Authority sa Dagat-Dagatan. May ginawa doon ang kapitbahayan. Yun po, habitat yan. Habitat funded. Ngayon, susunod po natin magagawa pa yung another city. Pag nagawa po natin 6 million houses, mararamdaman natin dito yung density. Yung laki ng density ng tao na nasa city. Hindi kakayanin ng kalsada. Hindi kakayanin ng tubig, ng kuryente, sa dami ililigay natin sa pabahay ngayon dito sa city. So, nag-uusap-usap po kami sa cabinet na sinasabi nila, dapat pag-aralan na rin yung mga kailangan kalsada palabas ng Metro Manila. Kaya po sa isang program, gumawa tayo ng city. 2 city, North City saka South City. Yung department po natin, para magkaintindihan tayo, National Shelter, diba? Nakakalimutan ko pa nga eh. Haba no? Department of Human Settlement and Urban Development. So yung nagawa na po natin at magagawa ko tingin po natin kung magtutulong-tulong po tayo, yung Department of Human Settlement, yung pang human settlement, may magagawa na po tayo. Mukhang masosolve natin yung pabahay sa human settlement. Ang wala tayo yung urban development. Kaya po yung susunod natin after the human settlement, yung program susunod na gagawa tayo ng 2 city. North and South City. Saka gagawa rin po tayo ng Queen City doon sa Visaya and Mindanao. Kailangan mag-isip na po tayo niyan. Kayo po sa DHSUD, pag-aralan nyo na po na kung nagawa po ni Quezon, yung Quezon City, magagawa po rin natin, magagawa rin ni BBM, ni Presidente Marcos, ang 3 Quezon City. Nakita niyo po yung program. Lagi ko po tinatanong, ano pa ba ang problema ng program? Meron pa ba kayo makikitang hindi matutuloy ang programa? Sa English, may loopholes pa ba yan? Every time na pinakikita po natin yung program, wala pong nagkasabing loopholes. Basta merong interest subsidy ang gobyerno. Even the World Bank kanina, wala silang masabi doon sa program. Ang sabi nila sa amin, doable your program, but too ambitious. Mag-aambisyo ko na rin, hindi ambisyo na natin yung langit. Di ba? Para masaya ang buhay natin. Tutuloy ko ba to? Hindi na. Mga kasama, mga ka-opisina ko, ka-empleyado natin, empleyado na rin na po ako ng gobyerno. Makakaasa po kayo kasama po ang aking mga undersecretary sa mga assistant secretary at mga opisyal ng DHSUD. Yung programa po ng mga pabahay at sa tulong nyo at sa tulong ng Habitat at sa tulong ng mga kasama natin na tumunta kanila ngayon, pati World Bank siguro, matatapos natin itong problema ito. Masarap sa puso at masarap sa kaisipan pag uwi mo sa bahay, yung mga squatter, yung nakikita nyo araw-araw magkakabahay. Yung nakikita nyo nagtitinda ng sa malamig. Yung nakikita nyo nagtitinda ng banana queue na nakatira doon sa slum area na hindi mo malaman kung ano nangyayari sa pamilya. Ititira mo sa condominium. Ang laki at ang sarap ng pakiramdam. Lalo na pagka naikwento nyo na we are part of that program. Diba? Magiging proud na kayo sa trabaho natin. Kaya po ang asawa ko, wala na pong ginawa araw-araw. Kung di kaya na ka ba magre-resign. Kasi po hindi siya sanay na maalis ako. Kamukha po nung nakaraan. Pumunta po kami ng Bisaya. 4 na lugar isang araw. Ang ginawa ko po, meron po kasi akong private jet na sinamahan. Nung private developer pa ako. Hindi ko po nagagamit. Kasi bira lang po ako bumiyahe. So meron akong timeshare doon. For 15 years, hindi ko nagagamit yung timeshare ko. Dito sa DHSUD, halos every week nagagamit ko. So gastos ko po lahat yun. Kaya po nung nakaraang araw, naka-4 na lugar kami. Paglipad namin sa Bacolod, 2 oras, groundbreaking, kausap sa mga local government, kausap sa mga ISF, kwento-kwento. At pagkatapos po nun, lipad na naman kami. Punta naman po kami ng Iloilo. Tamayan na naman sa mga mayor. So, speech na naman. So, pala-pala naman kami. Lipad na naman kami. Punta naman kami ng Rojas. Pagkatapos ng lipad, punta naman kami ng Bohol. For 1 day, naka-4 kaming lugar. Kasi 6 na milyon yung bubuluin natin. Kaya kailangan magtrabaho ng sagaran. Kaya nakakiusap ako lagi sa mga officer natin, pagpasensya na natin to. Anyway, tignan na lang natin kung sino natutulungan natin. Kaya mga kasama, sana magkakasama tayong lahat sa programa na inilunsad ni Presidente Bongbong Marcos at makatulong tayo sa mga mahihirap. Maraming salamat.
So again, Secretary Acusar, maraming pong salamat. But you have the support of the entire DHSUD family, of the entire nation, as well as our international partners. Nabanggit ni Secretary ang World Bank, and ngayon kasama natin ang UN Habitat to realize the dream of every Filipino family wanting to have a house of their own.
Once again, let's give a hand for our
Of
secretary.
course, maraming salamat, Secretary Acusar. So magkakasama tayo dito mga kasamaan sa DHSUD and of course, UN Habitat.
Yeah, speaking of that partnership, let's proceed with a video presentation on World Habitat Day, yung pinag-uusapan nating tema kanina na hashtag Mind the Gap. To know more about this and to hear the message of our Executive Secretary of UN Habitat, let's watch this video.
Do you know what it means? Mind the gap, leave no one and no place behind. Prosperous neighborhoods, it means. Cities, towns, and villages with zero poverty and zero exclusion, it means. Diversity of faces all over our cities, towns, and villages, it means. Mind the gap, leave no one and no place behind. Too many have very little to live, and some have too much to care. Some have roofs over their heads, and many live without. Some have access to clean water, and far too many don't. Some feel safe, and many live in fear. We face the triple C's, COVID, climate, and conflict. Time to act is now. Mind the gap. Leave no one and no place behind. We are bridging the gap and have no plan B for the triple C's. Mind the gap. Leave no one and no place behind. For our cities, towns, and villages, for our settlements, for a better quality of life, for all in an urbanizing world. Together, we have the means to bridge the gap.
The COVID-19 pandemic, recent conflicts, and the climate emergency have reversed years of progress in our fight against poverty. Today, we are witnessing the emergence of newly poor people, those of us who have fallen into poverty due to the 4 C's: COVID-19, climate change, conflict crisis, and capital. The UN Habitat's World Cities Report estimates that up to 163 million newly poor people now live in cities and urban areas. They have lost their income, lack decent housing, and cannot access basic services. Tackling urban poverty and inequality has become a global priority. Cities and local governments play a key role in responding to the crisis. Cities are accelerators of economic growth. By making them more equitable, urbanization can also help distribute this growth. If city managers have the right tools, they can plan and take action to reduce the gap between the have and the have-nots. That way, we will be able to create inclusive and resilient human settlements. We can also better prepare for future crises. The theme of this year's World Habitat Day on Monday, October 3rd is Mind the Gap. Leave no one and no place behind. It is a great opportunity to raise awareness about innovations that inspire all of us to push for immediate action. Transformative change starts with the individual, with us as a community, and with cities to scale things up. Local action is the best way to accelerate the implementations of the Sustainable Development Goals. There is not much time left until 2030. We need to act now and make our cities truly inclusive places so that no one and no place is left behind.
So at this point, for us to know more about the World Cities Report,
Yes.
we would like to call on to present details and insights from the World Cities Report our Country Program Manager of UN Habitat Philippines, Mr. Christopher Rolio.
Thank you very much. And Secretary Acuzar, good morning, and the rest of the DSUD team. It's really an honor for UN Habitat to be celebrating the National Shelter Month with you, and to also kick off the Urban October, because it's also Urban October, which starts with World Habitat Day today, and ends on October 31 on World Cities Day. So we'll be with you the whole Shelter Month, which is also Urban October. Maybe I can go. I know, Secretary, you're very busy. I will just go through this presentation, but please feel free to leave if you have to leave. The World Cities Report 2022, Envisaging the Future of Cities. This was launched just last June 29 at the World Urban Forum in Katowice, Poland. And next, please. This is the cover of the book that we just turned over to the Secretary of DSUD. So this was the World Urban Forum in Poland. And next, please. I just would like to Executive Director of UN Habitat, Mahmoud Sharif, saying that the vision of sustainable and equitable urban future will not be guaranteed unless cities and subnational governments take bold and decisive action to address both chronic and emerging urban challenges. I just would like to highlight key messages in the report, because the report actually consists of 10 chapters. And this is one of the key messages. The diversity and vision for the future of cities. Cities are here to stay, and the future of humanity is undoubtedly urban. So we know that the Philippines is already more than half urban, and in fact, as of 2020, we are now 54% urban. Just in the last census, we were just 49%, and we're now 54%, and this is accelerating. Urbanization is intertwined with several existential global challenges. So nabanggit na po yung 3 Cs of COVID, climate change, and conflict. And in fact, many of the conflicts happen now in urban areas. So building resilience must be at the heart of the future of cities. This is the latest from the Philippine Statistics Authority as of 2020. So from 51.73 million urban population to now 58.93 million, which represents 54% urban population in 2020. Therefore, with much of the population now in urban areas need to be prepared for dynamic and unpredictable futures. And localizing the new urban agenda and SDG 11 is the most promising pathway to the optimistic scenario of urban futures, because this report actually presents different scenarios. There's an pessimistic scenario, there's an optimistic scenario, and this report highlights the message that the new urban agenda and SDG 11 is a pathway to that. Next, please. So this is encapsulated in chapter 1, and when you go through the book, chapter 1 identifies some quick facts and policy points that can be more or less that can guide national and local governments when trying to address and respond to urban challenges. For example, some of the quick facts is that the business as usual approach will result in a pessimistic scenario of urban futures characterized by systemic discrimination and exclusion of the poor in urban agendas. So also there are policy points, and if you go through the report, you can go through these different policy points. But I'll just breeze through the key messages in each chapter. Next, please. These are some of the scenarios in terms of the degree of urbanization. So managing cities' density is the key future sustainability challenge for low-income countries. And urbanization is inevitable. Planning for urban growth is critical for sustainable futures, and most expansion of city land area will occur in low-income countries. Without effective planning, urban sprawl will become a low-income country phenomenon. The figure that you see on the right is actually our mapping of 3 metropolitan areas in the Philippines. On the top is Metro Manila, and you have Cebu and Davao. And you can see that in just a span of 1990, 2000, and 2016, the urban fabric of these cities have actually more than doubled. So this is true globally, and this is also true in the country, in the Philippines. And unless we manage urban sprawl, and as Secretary Acosar pointed out earlier, and unless we really try to achieve efficient densities, we'll be encountering urban sprawl with all its issues. Next, please. So again, this chapter 2 in the scenarios of urban futures, degree of urbanization, some quick facts and policy points. And I'd like to also point out that in fact, we were able to conduct a workshop again with the PSA on the global, with the degree of urbanization. And in fact, now the Philippine Statistics Authority are very keen of now capturing urbanization, urban information, not just in terms of statistics, but spatially mapping them out, and therefore to provide information now for urban planners and for local governments and national government, because this is one area of information that's lacking, no? And the PSA is now strengthening this information system. Next, please. Also, poverty and inequality, enduring features of an urban future. So urban poverty and inequality remain one of the most intractable challenges confronting cities. The COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in the emergence of newly poor people. And supporting informal employment is critical for building inclusive urban future. And people living in poverty in 2021 rose to a total of almost 20 million, or 18.1% of the population, from 16.7% in 2018. This is the latest information from the Philippine Statistics Authority just last August. No? So this is happening globally, but of course we know this. COVID-19 has really impacted everybody, and it has created new poor, especially new urban poor. Next. Again, this chapter lists some quick facts and policy points for consideration. Next. Resilient urban economies is a catalyst for productive future. So future growth and resilience cannot be sustained without bridging the infrastructure gaps across the urban-rural continuum. And sustainable urban and territorial planning supported by effective governance structures is critical for building resilient urban economies and productive urban futures. And cities should embrace the circular economy as a new frontier in the pursuit of sustainability and resilience. So it's circular economy, sustainable consumption and production, and cities play a key role in making that happen. Next. Again, chapter 4 details this in terms of the quick facts and policy points, really looking at resilient urban economies. Next, please. The next message is that securing a greener urban future, the twin crisis of climate change and the loss of global biodiversity threatens the future of cities. And the world is losing the opportunity to use the post-pandemic context as a catalytic moment to facilitate investments for a transition to a net zero carbon emission. And nature-based solutions must be part of inclusive planning processes for sustainable urban futures. So really looking at now, in terms of urban planning and design, looking at nature-based solutions for our greener and smarter cities. This is in chapter 5, elaborated, highlighting also some facts and policy points for consideration. Next is urban planning for the future of cities. So this focuses on urban planning. Recovery to pre-COVID normal is likely to delay climate action in cities because of the focus of trying to recover from the impacts of COVID. The trajectory of and the acceleration of trying to achieve climate action targets will be a little bit delayed. Urban planning should urgently pursue climate action as a basis for greener urban futures and embrace the 15-minute city concept as a model for creating walkable, mixed-use, and compact neighborhoods. So this concept has been, of course, championed by Paris and launched in the COP. But this is something that we can also look at in terms of copying the best practices in targeting a 15-minute city, really targeting densities and compact cities. Next, please. So this is in chapter 6 on urban planning for the future of cities. Again, listing down some quick facts and policy points. And then climate change is the foremost urban health threat and risks leading to the high damage urban future scenario. And the shift in armed conflicts to urban battlegrounds is another growing concern that could lead to the high damage scenario for urban futures. And local governments are best placed to design and implement multi-sectoral approaches to effectively realize healthy urban futures. So this is in, this is actually elaborated further. Next, please, in the chapter on chapter 7 on public health and sustainable urban futures. Again, some of the quick facts and policy points for consideration. And then also on rethinking urban governance for the future of cities. Future urban governance should institutionalize the mindset of planning for shocks and disruptions. So urban planning now will have to be, will really have to plan for shocks and disruptions. So it's not just based on what has happened in the past, but to become more flexible. And national government should enable better local government finances to respond to challenges of urbanization. And I think the Mandanas ruling is towards this direction. And the future of equitable service delivery relies on governance through modes of co-production with relevant stakeholders. And I can see when I was reading through many of the DHSUD, there is really a lot of partnership building, partnership strengthening that's going on. And this is, I think, and we're happy to note that, of course, this is the direction that the Department of the Government is going. This is in chapter 8 on rethinking urban governance for the future of cities. Again, quick facts and policy points to consider. So, on innovation and technology towards knowledge-based urban future. So innovation practices need to be tailored to local context. Although there are global innovation directions, they have to be localized. And city government should embrace low-carbon technology, but mitigate negative environmental effects. And local governments need to prepare their economies for the effects of advancing automation and digitalization, and cities can use digital tools innovatively to improve the provision of public services and local decision-making. This is further elaborated in Chapter 9 of the report. Next, please. And then in the last chapter, Building Resilience for Sustainable Urban Futures, really focuses on resilience thinking, has embraced the building back differently mentality. So it's not anymore about building back better, but building back differently. Building substantive urban resilience must be multi-sectoral, multidimensional, and multi-stakeholder, and policymakers must match urban risk assessments with appropriate solutions. So the pictures you see on the right there are from our project in Marawi on rebuilding from the post-conflict Marawi siege in 2017. This is, of course, in partnership with DHSUD. In the Philippine context, I just would like to share that in fact, in the World Risk Report 2022, which was just launched last month, the Philippines has risen to be #1 in terms of its rank as highest on disaster risk worldwide. So this is really very alarming for all of us. Now, this is the latest report on the World Risk Report. Also, $18.6 billion in economic damage and other losses due to climate-related disasters. And 85% of the country's GDP is sourced from areas exposed to climate change risks. And 7.3 million jobs lost due to the pandemic, record high unemployment rate, lack of safety nets for urban poor sector to cope with loss of livelihood. So this is some of the challenges that we're now facing, and therefore the need really for resilience planning. Next, please. So there is a need for better, smarter, greener human settlements, and towards this direction, some of the actions that we have been doing is the, of course, with the department, so that's the lead, is the formulation of resilient and green human settlements framework for building resilient cities and communities. And there are 6 key resort areas that describe the needed conditions for each development sector under this framework. Next. Again, this is further elaborated in the last chapter of this publication on building resilience for sustainable urban futures, identifying 12 policy points at this time. So that covers the key highlights of the World Cities Report 2022, and we hope you will find this very useful. So this is already available in the website, and we'll be sharing also the link to the publication for everybody. Thank you very much.
And now, of course, we also have another guest from UN Habitat.
Correct. Yes, we would like to invite our Mr. Bernard Bard for the message of support from UN Habitat Philippines.
Our Human Settlements Officer for UN Habitat Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific. Sir?
Thank you very much, and happy World Habitat Day. It's been a long time that I've joined the Philippines ministries, partners, stakeholders for World Habitat Day. I could not come during the COVID period, and today is my first day back in the Philippines, and I'm very excited to celebrate this special day with you. So Secretary Hussar, Undersecretaries, Secretaries, Directors, and the team here in this hall, but also, of course, online in the regions. I will just very briefly focus on the support that UN Habitat has been providing to stakeholders in the Philippines, in particular to this ministry, but also, of course, its predecessors and other stakeholders, the key shelter agencies, local governments, other urban stakeholders, including communities. We have in the past engaged on policy level interventions. We're very proud to have been a partner in the NUDHF, which runs out this year, but also in shelter guides. We've discussed issues of local policies, local planning at the national and at the local level. But UN Habitat, of course, has also been very active in project implementation, not just the policy support. Chris has mentioned some of the initiatives that reach from post-crisis, post-disaster, and post-conflict shelter recovery work. We have, over the last few years, very much focused on climate resilience and low emission local development. We have, at the moment, ongoing also a project on marine plastic litter, but have engaged in solid waste management for many years here and in the region. Chris's presentation on the UN Habitat publication is almost a presentation on UN Habitat's services that we provide to national governments and to local governments. So this is, in a way, our offering that we provide as partners with key stakeholders. So I will not go any deeper into this, but I think there are a few opportunities for engagement. And first of all, I would like to congratulate the government of the Philippines to put out a very bold figures of 6 million houses. Big programs need to start with a big vision, and having a number out there that is almost impossible to reach, hopefully inspires everyone to come as close to it, or hopefully even surpass it. So engaging on housing, of course, that is one of the core pillars of UN Habitat. Housing and sustainable urban developments are those two pillars. So we certainly would be happy to engage. And we have very recently engaged in middle-income countries, I think in 6 middle-income countries, on housing policies, comparative housing policies, have looked into what has worked, what has not worked. And so maybe this would be interesting to build on and to engage. But of course, the National Housing and Urban Development Framework of the Philippines runs out this year. So we would be happy to also build on the partnership from previous years to explore how to engage. As you've heard now many times, this World Habitat Day is about SDGs. It's about SDG localization. It's about leaving no one and no place behind. For us, this, of course, is our mandate. This is really at the core of our work. And so building on this vision here in the Philippines to look into how to localize the SDGs. We have started engaging on voluntary local reviews. We've looked also nationally at subnational local voluntary reviews to assess SDG implementation, but also to support national SDG monitoring. I think this is a great start with this World Habitat Day to accelerate this type of work. Last but not least, in beyond the policy and technical and direct project collaboration in the Philippines, we also have worked very closely with the Philippines on sharing experiences that have emerged here in the Philippines with the rest of the world. We've done this in World Urban Fora and other such events. There are a number of these events coming up beyond Urban October, starting with a housing and urban development ministerial meeting at COP27. Many of the messages that you've heard today here, I think with the experience of the Philippines, can be amplified at the Global Climate Change Conference, hopefully helping not just the Philippines, but globally to advance on the climate resilient and low emission urban development trajectory. We have also the second UN Habitat Assembly coming up next year. The Philippines has always strongly engaged in UN Habitat's global work. So I would like to invite you to join us for this and to help shape UN Habitat, and through that, of course, the global sustainable urban development agenda further. The next Asia Pacific Urban Forum, which happens every 3-4 years, is going to happen next year. That's another opportunity. And whilst we just had the World Urban Forum in Poland, the next World Urban Forum is also just around the corner, at least from our perspective, in January 2024. And to provide an update on your very ambitious housing strategy, I think would be very interesting for a global audience. So I think there's a lot of support, a great partnership that we've had with the Philippines that we look forward to continuing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bernard Barth, of course, the Human Settlements Officer from the UN Habitat. May we continuously pursue a mutually beneficial partnership in the service of those who are in need. And Drew, as we have mentioned earlier, this is a triple celebration for the National Shelter Month, Urban October, and World Habitat Day. So for the month-long celebration, we have lined up activities to promote our theme, Abot Kayang Pabahay, Tungo sa Matatag na Buhay, and also for Urban October. So you may check the screen as we run through the activities across the country.
Yan, hindi na po natin iisa-isayin na, no? Pero these are the activities for the next coming days and weeks.
Yes. And this will be made available also sa ating website at sa ating official FB page. And sa mga regional FB pages, meron din silang mga postings ng kanilang month-long activities. So you may just check in sa kanilang mga FB pages.
Yan. At this point, mukhang kailangan natin magpasalamat sa lahat sa ating National Shelter Month.
So, wrap up natin ang bawat isa because we have officially opened the National Shelter Month
And the Urban October.
Thank you very much again, Drew, for co-hosting this morning.
And thank you very much din, Attorney Tin. At magpasalamat din tayo sa lahat ng ating nasa Zoom.
Sa ating mga regional offices, again, maraming salamat for being with us, no, digitally dito sa ating National Shelter Month. And of course, our Secretary Yakuza, our other secretaries and assistant secretaries, sirs from the UN Habitat, maraming salamat po. Happy National Shelter Month! Mabuhay po ang DHSUD!
Mabuhay din ang UN Habitat
Of
Philippines.
course!
Happy Urban October and World Habitat Day. Let's just have a quick photo opportunity.
Together with the officials from the UN Habitat, please. Thank you very much.
Ang kagawaran ng pananahan ng pantao at pagpapaunlad ng kalunsuran, pamumuhay na may dangal, ligtas at matibay na masisilungan, tahanan na bunga ng pagmamahal sa maunlad at matatag na pamayanan. pagpapatatag ng disenteng pananahanan, aming tungkulin na gabayan ang pagsasaayos ng kalunsuran mula sa aming puso, isip at diwa. Tunay na paglilingkod aming panata sa bawat pamilyang Pilipino, sa Diyos at sa ating bansa. Ang kagawaran ng pananahan ng pantao at pagpapaunlad ng kalunsuran.
Maraming salamat po,